with each other that I don't fully recall. But I do remember that one. And that's kind of where it comes from. But that's something maybe other people that have had a telepathic experience can kind of shed some more light on. But that's what it did to me. So hopefully that kind of expands on a little bit as to why the conversation was one piece of it, and then there's other pieces that kind of came out afterwards.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you. Can just a quick follow up. Those bits of pieces, like for example, the death of his home star. When you recall that, do you have access to that as a visual memory or just kind of the narrative of it? So, for example, some people have a memory of something happening, but sometimes other people sometimes have a memory simply that something happened descriptively. Is it more of a narrative, or do you actually have access to kind of visual sensory data of that memory?
It's all of it. It's like they were watching their world die from a distance, and the star began to consume the planet, and they could feel people dying, and I felt the people dying with them. So it was like the full experience. Like if you and I were all connected right now and happened to be be in the radius of a nuclear bomb, but we didn't want to leave our loved ones, that's what it felt like. If you could share that mind space one amongst another, collectively, it's a shared experience. So you get the full Monty. You get the visual, you get the sounds, the feelings, all of it. It's really, I can't explain it. It's so foreign to our language to think that way or you feel that way. And for me, it's very difficult to describe if I couldn't even begin to describe what it feels like, the emotion, and the pain that they were going through all together at the same time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's powerful. And just to clarify, so this is not through hypnotic regression at all, right? This is like through conversation with people that the fragments come to you?
Yeah, the UAP task force was just, asking me questions about the things that I had provided to them. And one of them was a star map, and that's where it came to my mind because they pressed me on the red star. And when I thought about it, because initially I was like, no, I don't remember any, like I said, and then all of a sudden this memory came into my mind. And I was like, holy crap, what am I feeling right now? And I was overwhelmed and I felt sad. Had a very difficult time getting through that because that was the first time. And they actually heard me cry too that first time.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I got a question I was going to ask about kind of the mentality of the people in the program, like the rationalization for why they maintain the secrecy. I just want to understand their point of view and like in the hopes that we can maybe argue against their rationalization.
It's not so much an argument. I think it's more of an agreement. I think most of the people that are in the leadership positions are doing what they feel is right, and in the way that they grew up in the traditions and in the program. And I think it's the leadership, though, that all of the people underneath have to abide by the rules of classification. And really, it's the top leader that is that cognizant authority that has the sole responsibility to either declassify something or reveal something or read somebody in. They can delegate only so far, but the people that are delegated that authority are also bound by those same rules. So I think the only way that they will hear what we're talking about is if they're tuning in to what we're saying right now and or hearing a recording thereof that, hey, I was in the program. I'm talking to people about the program, and I'm not trying to do it in a bad way, but I'm trying to get to a better spot. And I get all the pieces of the puzzle, but there's parts of this that are totally unclassified. I know it, and you know it. Is kind of the discussion that needs to happen, and then discuss, well, why did you do this? I mean, because it'd be one reason and they need to be honest with us at that level. That are you doing this because you were handed this as a tradition and a culture, or is this because you logically were briefed that this is the only way it can be, or not? Or is this something that is just off the table because the NHI want it this way? And just have that honest conversation. That's what needs to happen. Because I know, like, a good starting point for that discussion, if any one of them wants to come forward in either a classified setting or in public, I don't care. But I would be glad to sit down in a room with them, with other people that are concerned about the issue, and just say those kinds of things to them, and just say, well, let's discuss this, because I know the NHI are not using our classified system. As a matter of fact, told the opposite is true. So let's at least talk on that level without touching anything else about technologies and weapon systems, because I think starting on the technology and the weapon systems would be a bad starting point, because there's definitely roadblocks in that discussion. But the revelation.
What are the roadblocks with the technology? Just say it out loud.
Real quick, Arthur, if I could walk it back a bit, you shared something that was super emotional, I could tell, and I just wanted to take a moment to say I appreciate you for sharing that emotion with us. And you mentioned telepathy and feeling the other emotions. Since you had that experience, do you feel more like empathetic and intuitive, like with people as well? Because I find like there's an uptick in just people becoming more empathetic and sympathetic towards each other, and I wonder if it has anything to do with the phenomenon. Yeah, and then also too, how has it been getting support for your experience? Like, where could the government and like the society do better to support people, and like where have you got support too? I think that's important.
Well, the first part of your question is, thank you for supporting me. That it's an emotional thing, yes. And like I said, it's very hard to describe any of that, but the support has to come. Well, my support has come from other whistleblowers, and like David Grush and all the other people, and great people like Chris Mellon and Gary Nolan. Everybody's trying to be helping me through this walk, where everybody else can help. Excuse me, is to continue to support. But beyond that, other people like myself who don't feel they have any support or have a landing zone, because I got out of the program, they're still stuck in it. They got no landing place for their career, for any health care. I know I went through some traumatic stuff. I know that there's others that have been through worse and need, more care than they're being given. And I want to say that that's the part where we as people need to get together at an appropriate time to maybe push for some of that. Because I know when I came out to even testify, Congress was unwilling to pay me for that. I had to pay on my own dime. So it was there was a few $1,000 because I flew all the way in from Hawaii to do that. But the rules are that we don't pay for whistleblowers to come, because that's a bad, it looks bad to pay somebody to come and whistleblow. So they just don't do that. And I get that. So that's where I think that's a third party needs to be involved. Somehow that's where the American people can help with that, because they can do things out that or set up organizations that the government cannot. Because the government is the government, and I get it. They shouldn't be paying for people to come and snitch on programs and stuff like that. Yeah, it does look bad. You can't do that and not knock down your credibility. So I guess I'm kind of feeling like I didn't answer the first part of your question. Can you restate that?
Yeah, my first part was just, since your experience where you experienced this telepathy, have you just felt overall more intuitive and empathic, like in your life, like with people?
Oh,
do you feel like
yeah, I kind of do.
a better sense, kind of?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know whether it's because I'm actually feeling them more than I did, or that I just, you know, am more empathetic. But yeah, I've cried a lot more than I ever used to as a young man, because like I told you, my childhood absolutely sucked. If I showed any weakness, you know, I'd get beaten. And I learned to hide it a lot, even my pain, physical pain. You know, it's hard for me to show that to people. But after this incident, that changed me a bit. And at least on a social level, I cry more for them. And I get on my knees more when I pray, you know, and really, and at a rope's end kind of a thing, and really want something to change for the better. So yeah, I'm more empathetic in general. Whether it's telepathic or not, I just don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like full on telepathy, but I have noticed when experiencers, sometimes they become more like just empathetic and just relate more to people. It feels like, I don't know. But we got tons of hands. I'm not sure who's next. I think it was Jay Just.
I think you guys can hear me now. No, can you guys hear me?
Hey, yeah,
Okay, cool. I noticed you sound like you have a childhood trauma, and I think this is something that every single person that has experienced the phenomena, every single one of them have childhood trauma, which I find interesting. What is the fascination with childhood trauma in the paranormal or phenomena anyway? What do you think the connection is there?
well, gosh, it was horrible to go through it, but at the same time, it gave me a numbness to the pain to a certain degree, to the point where even when it got really bad, when we went to me and my family reunited with my dad after a long separation, uh, to see if my mom and my dad could mend the fences, it got really bad. It got even worse than it ever had before. But when it came to the divorce, within a couple of years' time, I was the only one willing to stay with my dad, and everybody else felt like I was a traitor. But my dad, when he finally rehabilitated, he said that the only reason he feels he made that was because he had my love. Um, so there was a strength in that. I think that, yeah, the pain was bad, but the result was that I got my dad at the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I find it interesting that your dad went through like a 12-step program, right?
Yeah, whatever AA was all about at that time. Like I said, it took him. He went through 10 years of it, up and down, relapse after relapse.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go through a lot of I had to do that pretty early in life. Like I had by the time I was 21, I had 3 DUIs. You know, I was a heroin addict, and I had to go through all that stuff pretty early in my adult career. And
Mhm.
there was some really lessons I had to learn about some like deep lessons about who I was and like stuff that I wouldn't have learned until I don't think much later in life that I really needed to learn. Stuff that was really important. Stuff that I
Yes.
think that
Yes.
a lot of people don't
Yeah.
learn later in life about just learning to deal with reality on reality's terms and just accepting them, not running from your feelings and not trying to numb them by masking them with alcohol or whatever it is you're trying to run from. Just learning to feel your feelings, and that's something that I had to learn how to do. And it's touching. Your dad really sounded like he learned that lesson. And I can
Yeah.
really hear it.
Yeah. There's a lesson to be learned when you reach the bottom of your own well, as they say. I think the one thing you really learn is not to fool yourself anymore, because I think he was just, pretending up until that point when he finally realized I'm the problem. And you literally break at that point. You're in your own mind. You're like, I am a piece of crap. I am not treating my wife the way I should. Look at what I did to my family. Look how many times I beat my son, and here he is, the only one standing here now. That starts to really shake your world. And I think that's what people need sometimes, is you need to really realize, what the hell are you doing to yourself, to the people around you? And if you don't have somebody loving near you to absorb all that destruction, yeah, you can end up in a really bad way or even die. So there's something to be said about the person going through the experience, and then there's something to be said about the people that are actually the victims. Some victims end up scarred for the rest of their life. Me, I chose the path of forgiveness and love. I was like, because my mom didn't speak to me for years, honestly. She always looked at me like I was a traitor for years. And then when she finally realized that I'm still the same son she knew and that I loved her just as dearly as I ever did, and she flat out asked me, why did you do that? Why did you side with him? I'm like, Mom, it wasn't about siding with you or siding with Dad. I just knew he wasn't going to make it if nobody stayed with him. And I knew that he needed love more than anything else. And I knew none of you had that ability at that point. And I was the only one. And I just thought, I have to be the person in the gap. And I said, that's as simple as I can make it. It's not because I hated you or anything. It's because I knew he needed something. He needed someone. And that's that's the same thing in every one of our lives. You're needed by someone, or someone needs you. And we change each other's lives every day. And it's just that profound, honestly, that simple and that profound. It's very simple, but it's very profound. Any one of us can have a discussion tonight, or something I say, or something one of you all say, and it'll mean the world to you, and it'll change your life in that second. And then the rest of your life, you learn from that point on to become a better person. And really, it starts with that one simple thought. Are you willing to reach out to an alcoholic dad, or a friend of yours, or somebody who's having trouble and maybe brash as hell, but they need somebody to just reach out and just kind of, do what I did for my dad, and just forget about all that and realize that, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but I'll walk this walk with you. Honestly, that's all it takes. Very simple. It's a very simple choice, but hard to do.
Yeah, forgiveness is super important. And gratitude. So, God, I think God, Sauce, you had your hand up. I'm sorry you didn't get to speak before, but here you go, brother. Glad to see you up here.
Hey, thank you, man. I've been having a rough morning with lots of pain. Yeah, I just wanted to speak on a few things, and like 5 subjects have come and gone. We're in a totally new space now, and even now, it's like, fuck, man. I wanted to say a lot of things. It's interesting that we're talking about the fear of losing a career for things. A lot of us have been lifelong survivors of abduction, of encounters, of visitations. I want to ask Mr. Jason Sands. It's nice to meet you. I want to ask you if you think most of us have a career, have insurance, have money, backers, investors, have proper medical care for the things that we've gone through, and why you think these people should have empathy for trying to hold on to that after a lifelong career. They've gotten plenty. And it's time for them to fucking open up about this stuff, because we're suffering, and we don't have the kind of insurance and backers and investments and all this like lifelong career network, all this stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm like, I don't know. It's very upsetting,
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes life's just fair.
Well, go ahead. I get what he's getting at with the question. And I'd say, yeah, there's always a victimhood to be seen, and that there's always something and someone or somewhere in government that is unwilling to help. I've definitely felt that numerous times. I've even wondered where my career is going. I'm doing that right now. I'm switching jobs again. So I don't know where I'm going to end up. And it may just be because I am associated with the UAP community this time around. But yeah, I get it. And I just want to know how can we set that up so that there is a safe place for people, and that how do we make our government more honest? Because we have enough money, we have enough resources, but it seems that we're not spending the money on us. We're spending the money on others rather than us first and then reaching out. Because as you know, I can give a lot more to charity if I have my house in order. And right now, our house is not in order. It's all over the damn place, governmentally. And that's one of our biggest hindrances, I think, in our own society, because we're the most charitable nation on earth. I don't know if all you people know that. We give way more to all sorts of countries every year. I mean, you're talking trillions and trillions of dollars more than any other nation on earth. And we've very rarely been paid back for it either, even though people have promised. So that's a form of what you could call, in some other people's lives, well, that's socialism. Well, no, it's not. It's charity. You know, well, it's a sharing of wealth. Yeah, you're right. It's charity sharing of wealth, not socialism. Like we all are going to be living on breadcrumbs just so the elite can have the rest.
We're on breadcrumbs. Like, this is what
right.
we're getting from disclosure.
Right.
Like, I'm nearly 30 years deep.
Right, but at the hands of who? It's at the hands of the elitists, right? The ones that just can't get enough. And that's the problem, is how do we put integrity back into these jokers and tell them, look, no, yeah, we'll pay you, more than what the regular Joe Blow does, but 1,000 times more than every Joe Blow is kind of exorbitant. I don't care how important you think you are, but at a certain level, you need to realize you're asking for a hell of a lot. I get that you feel you earned it all, and yeah, I would feel the same way if I made myself $1 billion or $1 trillion, but I would certainly only take what I needed to subsist and live a lifestyle that was, not too outrageous, but just, something I knew I wanted to live throughout my life and be with my grandchildren, that kind of thing. I don't need 10 freaking houses all over the stinking world to feel like I finally made it, and then still want more houses. I find that kind of but it ends up looking a lot like the socialist society in the end, because in the socialist society, it's the elites that are taking everything. And you look at our society, it's the elites that are taking all the resources and the money. And it's all the monopolies and the big money makers that are making the people vote, or saying, damn the people's vote. You do what I do, and I'll give you, 10 million for your campaign. And, who are we to stand up against that? I can't make $10 million and tell them, shut your mouth, go home.
This is free. Comparison is the thief of joy. And they are looking at people like Bezos and Gates, and they're saying, I don't have enough. I am not joyful. I cannot speak joyfully to my group of humans who so desperately need this information and want this truth to be spread. I cannot express myself joyfully because I need so much more, because I'm comparing myself to these men for money. And it's like, holy shit, man.
Yeah, well, most of them are very charitable as well, so I'm not going to bash on any of them.
No. Bash. Bash. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's just, it comes with great responsibility as well. And I think some of them do a better job of that than others. I will admit that, yeah. But I also know of some real snakes in the grass that are just like big companies out there in even our nation that would literally harm thousands, hundreds of thousands of us just to make another few dollars.
That's terrible.
It is.
Jay, just
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few questions, if allowed. First question is, the orbs. Do you know anything about the silver orbs that seem to be what Patrick Jackson says is a defense system?
Oh, those. Yeah, I read up on that too. No, if that's going on, it would be a new system altogether than what I've been familiar with. I do know that there was a part of the program that is in space, but it didn't deal with these orbs. I think this is a new thing, what Patrick is bringing up. So he's going to have to defend his own points on that.
Well, I think he thinks it's NHI protecting our planet. Do you think it's ours or NHI?
Oh, yeah, that could be a possibility. I would say that during any kind of an era of change, that we can expect both sides of the NHI fence line to show up, the bad ones and the good ones. And that could be one of the signs, is that they will show up like they have been. And there's going to be more and more flaps where there's an increase in activity. And then you just have to wait to see what the intent looks like. I mean, if it looks like it's good, then it means one thing. But if it looks like they're being threatening, that's quite another. And you have to be careful what you say is threatening, though, because if they think any one of the governments here on the face of the earth are threatening nukes, I think they've already made their choice about nukes quite clear on the NHI side back in the 60s, that they don't like nukes and they don't want us to test them and they don't want us to throw them around. And I think that would be the one thing that would set off a war of the world, so to speak, because they do not want to see that happen at all. Because they see the planet as being precious, even more precious than probably what we think it is. And
they're protecting their herd. I don't see this as good. I think it's all flavors of bad.
well, we're not so much a herd, that the planet itself is a precious thing, and we included on that we are the indigenous species of it, and we deserve our path forward is what they might be protecting, not because they're coming here to turn us into hamburgers.
Okay, my other question was, do you know how many species there are of NHI?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think in general, I know of only 3 for sure that I heard spoken of. I've heard.
Can you tell us who they
Yeah,
are?
the tall whites, the grays, and the reptilians. Those were all mentioned on mission while I was tenured in the program. Now, the others, I think within the galaxy of the Milky Way, I think there's like 18 is what I've heard is the number. But when you look at the entire universe, you're talking there's trillions of others, to the point where whatever you imagine a life form could look like actually exists out there. That's how diverse it can be, mathematically speaking, because it's just beyond our imagination. And that could be what's going on, and that the way to make it to the next level, or the interplanetary level, is that I think maybe you have to meet certain criteria before you're fully accepted. And we just are not there. We're not fully accepted yet. And maybe that's what they're waiting for. Maybe that's what part of this presence is with the orbs and stuff is that maybe they think, well, this is a time that maybe they will come to a new beginning, or maybe this is the time when we can help them finally, because they finally ask in the right way. Maybe that's part of what's going on. And at the same time, the ones that don't like us are thinking, well, how can we ruin this for them and turn them back into the reprobates that they deserve to be? That could all be going on as well.
I'm going to cut in here real quick.
Thank you.
Jason, when you were in the program, can you speak on like knowledge of that you guys had of other countries' programs like China or Russia?
They're not in the other countries. I never heard any of that ever taking place. I think they have retrieved some of the craft, but I don't think they've been successful with it. And I don't think the NHI really wanted to be involved with them because of the tyrannical nature of their leadership in some of those countries. China may actually, in the ancient past, have had a more acceptable society at a certain point, but they lost their way within this last decade or last century. And I think that they've lost contact, if anything.
Yeah, what were they doing in the past that was so like they're just more honorable back then, right? I know like was it Japan that holds like those special like tools that only the emperor can see? You think those are like an NHI gifts?
Man,
you heard a crazy echo going, Logan?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Guy Springthorpe.
Yeah, I think I fixed it. Is it gone now? It should be gone now. So like the Japanese emperor, he holds these gifts that were given to him by like I don't know, some higher being. Right? That's the legends. The emperor can only see them like it's like some mirror and some like tools or something that you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. I would say that, yeah, when you get past about, 5,000 or more years, there seems to have been an era in ancient history where the South American tribes, Indonesian areas, Tibetan areas, Chinese, it seems like there were certain people had real contact, like they walked among us, just like, you hear all the ancient legends that gods walked among us. And even in the Bible, it states that that's true, that they were considered giants, men and women of great renown. So, yeah, it's quite possible that some of them had tools given them to, keep contact. Because you have that portal down in South America, right? Where they still go out there and do all their chakras and stuff like that. And same thing goes on in India. And China as well. They have a lot of tradition that says that they had literally been given tools to stay in contact and communicate and be able to see things that others could not. And it seemed to have been given to the emperors of the day and that's why the bloodlines, I think, a lot of times were considered sacred. It's because they were the ones that actually had the contact with these extraterrestrials at the time. And so, yeah, the bloodline was very important because that portal or that mirror was handed down from father to son for probably many years. So,
you know that thing you're talking about is the Puerta de Hayamarca, right? Like I think it's by Lake Titicaca. It's like the gate of the gods, like this like door shaped thing in a big rock, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it has like really well engraved areas and stuff in there. Just things that are really hard to to explain, let alone what shape and what was there, what was attached to the side of that hill that was that big and required that kind of fitting to be put onto it. It just makes you wonder.
Yeah, what's like Petra? Like what's going on in Petra? I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't mean to derail the conversation. Who's next? I don't know. Ocean and Panda.
It's Guy, me, QFO, then GJS.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jason two things. Like are you aware of the 1922 Germany channeling that they did with the Vril and I think it was the Anavi, I think it was, and they had two mediums that channeled like anti-gravity inventions and so forth, and even going to India, the guy who channeled the Vimana mantras, I think, and he channeled one of the, can't remember which leader it was. He was the guy who dealt with the rockets and stuff back before the American Revolution or the American War. And also, what are your thoughts on Robert Bigelow? Have you had any interaction with him? He's been kind of in control for like 30 years with the narrative, and when you've been saying about donating money to certain leaders to grant them elections, he's been one of the major players. He put loads of money in Thingy's bank, in Trump's bank, in I don't know what the other guy's called who didn't go through, but yeah, he's been putting through since 1990, I think, or 1989 when he did the Roper data poll with John Alexander.
Yeah, I would say that you're on track and that those are all possibilities. I mean, honestly, we're still kind of doing what was going on with the Nazis and them trying to dig up the ancient texts on things that were going on. And somehow they believed that that's where some of the super weapons were going to be discovered, right? Because they stumbled on some things and they started to see some of the writings go, yeah, these are the UAP that we see in the sky. Maybe this has already been a part of the culture. And we're kind of thinking the same thing with all of our talk of like the ancient aliens, what have you. So yeah, there's probably some things there that yeah, it could be possible that we've had contact earlier on, but now that contact is being put to the wayside because it seems like there's been a concerted effort to hide all of that stuff and to wipe out that part of the history. It seems like there's been like a scratching of all that history so that maybe we could stop and do some more reflection rather than going after technologies and other things that are frivolous. And I think maybe that might be more of what's going on with the Illuminati and other things like that, is maybe they see a better future by slowing that down, all the technology down, and trying to take a breath and just get to know who we are for a while. And maybe some of that is based on some of that historical stuff, but that's just conjecture on my part. I'm not an expert by any means. I'd ask somebody like Dolan, who actually has been out there for a while and done some archaeological digs, and Eric von Daniken, definitely, he's a great scholar as well. Matter of fact, he's the only book as a child that I remember that really opened my eyes to, another possibility of archaeology. So it's quite possible, though, that that's something that the Germans that latched into as well. So yeah, I agree with you on that part.
Well, that's the thing as well. There's a lot of documentation about the production of actual craft. There was like 62 craft created in Germany. The BMW factory and the Fiat factory in Italy were both linked together and both creating. And the Horton brothers were creating the single winged fighters. There was one of the discs apparently that had 500 hours on it, and one flight of it was an 11-hour flight, and there's loads of information on that. But like you say, it's all been scrubbed out, and we're not allowed to look at it. We've been brainwashed to think that if we look at that stuff, it's evil because of what atrocities that they committed. But on the other hand, dropping nuclear bombs on a population which is basically surrendered and defeated, not just once but twice, is just as evil as what the atrocities that they did. You know what I mean? It's one hand on the other. It's one of those.
Shouldn't be pointing fingers when pointing a finger at yourself, not fingering yourself. Please don't think I said that. But yeah, you need to point a finger at yourself before you go pointing. Yeah, before you go pointing it.
Wow, Red Panda.
Yeah.
I hate to be this rude and interrupt. I want to make sure we're not pulling you away from a previous commitment. So please stay here. We love you here. I feel like I'm going to be crucified just for saying this. But if you promised Diener that you were going to show up, I don't want you to experience missing time in Logan spaces. It's easy to spend 24 hours here straight.
No, I wasn't gonna. I was just gonna listen this time around, but I figured, you guys were asking, hey, can you say something more?
No, we want you. We want you here. I just don't want you to feel like betrayed or deceived by us that we ran out the clock and didn't want you to show in Dieners. You know what I mean?
That was honorable of you, Doomer Daddy.
Yep.
Thanks, Doomer. You're so compassionate.
Nobody would forgive me, but I just wanted to make sure we're good.
We're good.
It really is honorable of you.
Diener and I have an agreement that I put him in shock the other day, and he's going to take time to digest, just like everybody else that I've talked to in depth. And he knows he can talk to me anytime, and we really hit it off. We have a lot in common. So Diener and I, we have a lifetime now to look forward to just talking. The same as any other friend of mine will, and you guys too, for that matter.
Awesome. When you say you put him in shock, that's not regarding like ontological shock. You don't have some juicy Doomer stuff.
No, okay. Just opening up the doors to some other areas. I mean, I even held back on him, and I told him so. And I said, I'm not even telling you the weird stuff. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, really. So I know that what I told him, like he said, it was a wide-ranging conversation, and we just kind of went where our hearts led us, and it really set the groundwork, but it takes a while to parse some of what I said because we talked for a good while, just like we're doing today. It's going to take a while to parse through.
Hey, Jason, just two quick points. Yeah, you mentioned about the need for a third
Randy.
party. Yes. Yes. Okay. Jason, you mentioned the point about the need for a third party. I keep mentioning the need for Congress. You know, we need to get rid of that middle aisle. That's just a sign of decisiveness. So I agree with you 100% on that point. That's just
Mhm.
like that's just really not a good thing for our country. The second point is, I've been abducted by blue aliens. So, I hear, talk about you with the blue aliens. It wasn't really a positive experience for me. So,
Mhm.
um, I'd like to talk to you later, like in a more private with maybe with Steven, you or something like that. But yeah, it's happened throughout my childhood since 1967.
Yeah.
I'm turning 65 now, so it's happened many times. Actually, like there's like involved with the death of my son.
Oh
A
wow.
year later, after I shot the craft, after I pulled out some implants and moved to Ohio, I thought they wouldn't find me, and they did. So I have some military experience like yourself, and I took my rifle and shot the craft, and they hit me with the blue beam, and then I suffered with migraines since then.
Mm.
But yeah, not a positive thing. So, but anyway,
Yeah.
so it's not about me; it's about you today. So I appreciate you, but I have had experience with blue beings. And I've done reverse hypnosis and that kind of brought on some PTSD. Just kind of like the trauma of what I remembered is like, oh my goodness, they
Yeah.
did this. So anyway, so thank you. I agree with you about the third party need.
Yeah, I'd like to figure out, how about the hostility part, because sometimes I've heard from other people that are abductees when they talk to me. Sometimes they say, "Well, I don't know whether the fear came from me or from them, but I did some things that maybe I shouldn't have done, and maybe that caused them to respond the way they did, and it just spiraled out of control at that point." And I'd like to talk a little bit more about the conditions you felt you were in.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I'll take another few questions, and then I want to kind of watch some TV shows, relax before I go to sleep tonight. But
Oh, Mr. Sands, that Jason Dyer is hosting his space right now, talking about you. I think he thinks you're coming in there. I know a lot of people are in there kind of waiting for you. That's why I popped in over here. I'm like, are you going to be in that space? Like, what space are you in? Because I want to be wherever the action is.
I'm gonna go hop on Deaners. Sorry.
Wait, can I ask my question? I've been waiting for like an hour, then my phone died.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Let's do this. And
Real
then,
quick, wrap it around with all the hands here.
Okay, I think I was next. Oh my gosh, I almost said a goose. They're in the middle of the road. Sorry. Okay, so I always ask people this because after doing research, I really think that obviously it's a spiritual phenomena. I don't think it's a space alien phenomena. So, and then the Drake equation you quoted earlier, that equation was created whenever they thought cells were balls of jelly. And as a biologist, I can tell you that cells are not balls of jelly. They have intricate machinery, and they've actually updated the Drake equation. And from the last paper I read, it was about the chances of there being other intelligent life forms at this very time are like, I don't know, very, very low. They're very, very low. They're not as high as people think they are. And life is not as common as you think it might be. It doesn't just spontaneously arise. We don't even have a working theory to have a first life arose in this universe. So just put that out there. But what is your best evidence that this phenomena is a phenomena of space aliens from another planet?
My evidence is just that I was standing 3 feet from one of them and 50 yards from the person's craft.
Right, and Ezekiel's wheel was an angelic being that also had a physical craft, and that was an angel attached to it. So just because there are physical, UFOs and beings doesn't mean they're necessarily space aliens.
Right, and then I've had friends also that have had what I consider interdimensional contact, like and had strange things like he saw a being and it came over and shook his hand, but it felt like his hand was vibrating, and I thought to myself, and told him later, I said, I think that's interdimensionalism because, you know, we only have our flat side of our hand that we feel when we shake hands. But if it's interdimensional, there'd be more than one side touching you at the same time. And it would probably feel like a vibration, according to the way your nerves are set up. And then he also mentioned how the craft appeared far away when it was turned a certain way and had other parts that were right next to him in other areas. Again, interdimensionality and parts that could be seen, parts that were unseen. So we're dealing with things that are very, very much foreign to us and our understanding, because we've been taught from childhood that things have to be this way only, and there's no deviation. And I think that that's something that you have to release yourself from and say, okay, you know, the teachers didn't mean to do me wrong. It's just the best they knew. So it's time to release my mind now. I'm an adult and I can get by without all the bias now. And I need to rebuild all of this and take it as part of the data set rather than just the God's honest truth.
Absolutely. And look up the CE4 research group with Joe Jordan, who worked at MUFON, found that, you know, calling on Christ stopped abductions. And I think this is one of the, there's multiple pieces of evidence in my book, but this is one of the main ones that shows me it's purely spiritual, conjuring them with demonic rituals and things like that. And the Collins elite who did elaborate research in, I think it was the 1900s, trying to figure out the nature of the phenomena, found it to be spiritual and even demonic in nature. So Dr. Ray Boucher, who worked with the DOD, has some, you know, experiences he wrote down in academia. You can go read about it. But I think there's a lot of evidence there's more going on here, and I don't really see much evidence that they're from another planet. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm you know, I have not been to another planet as far as I know. But there are, like I said, just open your mind up, folks. I mean, we don't know what we think we know, honestly. I found that out very early on in this program, that I didn't know what I thought I knew. But anyway, let's go jump on Diener, man. Let's do that.
Let's all go Space Raid Diener. Let's all go hype it up. Woo!
Yeah, he's gonna be wondering what the hell happened.
All right, sounds good, Jason.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
Jason.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thank you for your service. We love chilling.
Yep.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
All righty. Talk to you a bit. Bye.
Awesome, Logan.
Who is that guy again?
Diener.